So welcome to class, everyone. My name is Filomena Jack, and we are making some adorable little paper rose ornaments and some folded paper ornaments. So it's kind of like the bonus situation. Oh, my camera's on the other side tonight. But you'll be able to see a lot more clearly when I'm gonna flip my camera. So what you're gonna need are scissors and your kit. And I already apologized for the scraps of paper you'll be picking up for the next week. I created these in my sewing studio because it's easy for me to cut paper up there and on the couch while I was watching Oklahoma. And there's just paper all over my house. You are warned. So I'm gonna shut off my camera just for a moment, so I can flip my camera so that you can see my work surface. And Emma from the library, thank you for being with us tonight. She will also be able to help us. If at any point you need to raise your hand or ask a question, you just blurt it out. We're all adults here, just blurt out whatever your question is. But if I don't see something because I'm not looking at the camera, just get my attention or get Emma's attention, and we will take care of it. So I'm just going to shut my camera off for a moment so that I can flip it. Okay. Welcome to my work surface. Let's see if I should move this back a little, All righty. So we've got two designs that we're going to work on tonight. And this is really just a launch pad for all of you to take these paper manipulations and make them your own. And it's also a fast class. We've only scheduled an hour here tonight. And I don't know that we need all of that time, but we're here. We're here together to hang out and make some stuff. And I think these are really great, like last minute gifts, especially the more ornamenty one, which is this one right here. I made these years ago as gifts. I was going to a holiday party and I had to whip up like 20 of them, and it was so fun. This I actually used for the librarians in the house. Shield your ears. I used an old book that was discarded, and it's actually a book about the history of Ireland, and I gave it to my Irish in-laws, and it's just really fun. So we're going to work on this project here, which is more like an ornament. And we're also going to work on these paper roses, which you could also make into an ornament, but would look really beautiful sitting on a package. And your paper in the kit isn't necessarily large enough for this size. Let me see if I think that blue against blue might be hard. Let me see if I can change the color up here. But this is from a 12-inch piece of paper. What I've put in your kit are these squares that are just a 1/4 of a 12-inch piece of paper. And the papers that are in your kit are some of these really beautiful sort of cotton rag papers. I found this, it's the Park Lane brand. I got it at Joann's. Premium. It's handmade artisan acid-free paper, so fancy schmancy stuff. And so you have you either have rectangles or squares of these. I think you have square, yeah, you have squares of these. So we're only going to be really needing to use one square at a time when we're working on the flower. And then when we get to making the ornament, cha-cha-cha, you'll need the longer strips that we have. And I've also given you some other ephemera, some circles. Oh, sorry, I hit the camera. So I've given you some ephemera, some circles, and that I've punched out. And you also have these glue dots in your kit. You have some sparkly little gems on your kit. in your kit. I would be careful if you have any small children or cats that like to chew on things or dogs that like to chew on things. I would be careful with these little gems because I don't know how secure they'll be just on their own. And you also have a clip here I've put in everybody's kit because it helps you. It's almost like having a third hand. Sometimes you clip things together to give yourself some extra clippage. You have some, and yours may differ. So if two of you are sitting next to each other and you each have a kit, your papers and your ribbons may look different. Your sparkles may look different, but we all have basically the same thing. So I think what we'll start with is the rose. So this one here. Again, this is if we were making it out of a 12-inch piece of paper, but you can do this really with you could do this with newspaper. I don't know, newspaper is stronger than tissue paper. I don't know how tissue paper would hold up, but it'd be an interesting experiment. And you'll see as we go along, you can make them look quite different depending on your personalized technique for spiraling these things. So to start, we're going to start with the rose, and we're going to start with, we just need one square of paper. It doesn't matter which you pick. I'm going to use a solid color because I think it shows up a little easier on camera. I'm going to use a solid color, so I just need to make a square here. Oh, aren't these papers beautiful though? I just love them so much. And when you turn them into the roses, they just look so beautiful. If you wanted to, you could sketch this out before you do it. If you've been in class with me before, you probably know that I like when we just fly by the seats of our skirts. But if you were to sketch this, ultimately what we are creating for these roses are a spiral. Starting all the way on the edge here. And you don't need to do this. I'm just drawing this on here so that you can really see what I'm talking about. So really, we're going to be cutting a spiral. And you can create this spiral sort of, there's some soft waves in here, but it's not really all that herky, jerky, or wavy. Or you could make it more like ocean waves. The important part is going to be that we have some sort of like a landing zone. We need something in this center area that's not too small, because that's going to be the base of our rose. It's almost like a little teacup. The bottom, the inside of that spiral needs to have some space that we can actually glue on. So you don't have to draw this. You can if you want to. I don't like to draw it because then you potentially could see the line, or maybe that's what you're going for, and that's okay too. So I'm going to take sort of this one here, and with our scissors, starting on the outside, so we're not starting in the center. You could, it doesn't matter, but that's just harder right now. We're just going to basically cut a spiral, and if you get little hiccups in the paper, like if you don't cut it quite right, it's totally fine. You're going to see we're going to be able to trim these later. But basically, we are cutting this paper into a spiral. This is a fun project to do with little kids. I would, if you were doing this with some little kids, I would draw the spiral for them. It's really good for their eye and hand coordination to learn to use scissors, being careful of their little fingers, of course. and staying on the line. So it might be helpful for little kids if you draw it, or there is no shame if you're gonna draw it and use that. That's just fine. So at the end, you should have this sort of springy tail-like weirdo piece of paper. And depending on what your paper looks like, you may have chosen a double-sided paper or a single-sided paper. So you will have to make some sort of decision about what do you want to be the inside of the rose and what do you want to be the outside of the rose. When I was making this sample with that beautiful handmade paper, I chose to have the floral be the outside of the rose and the creamy white to be the inside. On this sample, this paper was double-sided and I chose to have the blue as the outside and sort of this taupey color. If you have some paper that is two color, like this one here might not show up on camera, but it's actually a darker pinky color and a softer pinky color. So I chose the darker on the inside because I was feeling like roses in general sort of look darker on the inside. I don't know. But that is a decision you're going to have to make, because what we're going to do in our next step is we're going to start to roll this into a spiral. Before we do that, I think it's a good idea to get one of your sheets of your glue dots. Now, if you've never used these glue dots, welcome. I have a love and not hate, but a love of these glue dots, but also they can be frustrating. Again, if we were all in class together, if we were all sitting in a room together, I would have brought in like 10 hot glue guns for us, and we would have shared hot glue guns, but that's not what where we're at. So we've got these beautiful little glue dots. And what happens is, you see they're perforated, so you can separate them, but there's two layers. So the glue is actually sandwiched in between a backing layer that's sort of like deli paper and a top layer that's like cellophane. So for now, if you can, try to keep the sandwich together, but I would suggest that you take the time to separate these glue dots into their individual squares, even if you just do half a sheet for right now, because you'll probably need 4 or 5 for this rose. Again, if you do this again with and you have a hot glue gun at home, by all means, I would not use the hot glue gun with the kiddos. But I would get some of these squares sort of separated now, because it is harder to manipulate everything and get the glue dots separated. You may also want to keep your your clothespin handy, because it may help you in a moment. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. And essentially what we're going to do is I start by wrapping the paper around 1 or 2 fingers, and I'm just making a loop. You really can't do this wrong. As long as you don't get a paper cut, you can't do this wrong. Essentially what we're going to be doing is taking this whole spiral, and you can see it's like wrapped around my arm. You're going to take this whole spiral, and we're going to twirl it, twirl it, twirl it. I'm doing this very quickly. I'm going to let this go. I'm not securing this right now. I'm just trying to give you like a heads up of what's going to happen. We're going to twirl it, twirl it, twirl it all the way around, boop, 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 until we get to this the middle, this like landing spot. And then we're going to zhuzh, one of my favorite words, this paper until we get this cupped rose, this sort of romantic and abstract and wild cupped rose. But you can see it's a bit fiddly. So having the clip is handy, having your glue dots ready is handy. And like I said, maybe you're going to use 4 or 5 of these. I think on this big one, this is a whole 12-inch piece of paper. This big one, I think I used maybe 6 of those glue dots. And on these small ones, I've maybe used 3 or 4. But use as many as you need to get this in shape. So again, how we start is starting at the end, so not in the center. We're not starting in the center. We're starting at the end of the paper. And you may decide, depending on how thick or thin these, let's say petals, each of these is going to basically become a petal. You may actually snip this end off if it's too thin. And you'll see as we go around, we're probably going to trim some of the petals just to, again, zhuzh it up. So starting at the end, and if you've done any quilling, traditional quilling, you would take a piece of paper and hold it between either your fingers or something, a little clamp, and you would wrap around and around. We're sort of doing that. We're sort of doing like a modern take on quilling. So I'm just going to wrap around 2 fingers and sort of get the center of my rose and tighten it up. And now I'm just going to take one of my glue dots. And again, it's fiddly. I know if you wanted, you could hold this together with your clip for a moment if you need to. And I'm going to take off, it's usually better if the glue stays on the clear side of this sandwich. This is, again, a bit fiddly and you'll have to see how it works. I usually like it better when the glue dot comes off of this opaque area or translucent, and toss that away. And so now the glue dot is ready to be stuck to my project. So I'm going to take off my clip here and just find some sort of space where it makes sense. So let's see if you can make sure you can see. So I'm pressing down the glue dot onto the paper. And this is where it could be a little frustrating, but you're just going to breathe and you're just going to let it happen the way it's going to happen. You may have to take your thumbnail and separate it a little bit from the plastic. Oh joy, glue dots. But it'll work. All right, it's off. And now it's stuck to my finger. Okay, so let me rewrap that center and just, okay, so I've got a connection here. A little glue spot. Hooray. And now I'm just going to keep wrapping, and then maybe every 3rd twirl or so, when I decide, oh, there's a, like right here seems like a good spot to get the rose to adhere to itself. So you can see why it was important for us to separate these beforehand. And again, I can use that clip, that clothespin to sort of hold things in place. Take off my glue dot and find a place that the glue dot wants to live. You want to live right there. Okay. Sort of press it down. And say a little prayer that the glue is going, all right, get rid of that little plastic thing. Again, there are going to be little bits of paper and plastic all over your space. I do feel your pain, but for art, we must do some work, right? So, all right, so I'm adhering that glue dot. And sometimes, I don't know if it's coming up on camera, but the paper didn't, the paper was a little bit more narrow than the glue dot. That is just fine, because when we go back around with this twirled paper, that's going to be great because I can get the next round to adhere right there. How joyful. And right now it looks a little weird. It's kind of pointy. It's kind of strange. That's fine. Don't worry. We're going to get to a point where we're going to start trimming these. So we're just going to keep that process going, trying to keep the backside of this relatively flat, keeping this backside relatively flat. It's fine if the top of our rose is all at different heights and levels. That's what we want. That's going to give it a lot of texture, but try to keep this bottom area sort of flat, because when we get to the point that we are gluing back down onto that middle of the paper, it's much easier if we've got sort of a flat surface. So again, every once in a while, decide you're going to put a glue dot somewhere. And each person is going to use as many glue dots as they need. But again, you could probably get away with 4 or 5. There we go. Throw that piece of plastic somewhere. You'll be finding them for weeks. You can think of me every time you pick up one of these little pieces of plastic. Think of it, it's me smiling at you. Okay. So it's like every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. Like every time you find a piece of shrapnel, Philomena's thinking good thoughts for you. All right. I'm just wrapping. And this is a project that I can sort of become obsessed about. Like I could imagine making lots and lots and lots of these. Like I said, I made over 20 or 25 of the second project the year that I designed that one. And I become sort of happily obsessed with cute things and pretty things. So this is definitely one of those projects. So, okay, I am getting to the point on mine where I'm close to this ending flap. So at some point, I will just figure out a way to sort of bend my rose so it's sitting, it's again, almost like a teacup and a saucer, so that my paper can sit on that flap. And it maybe inside I do a little bit of folding under of a piece so that it has a place to attach to. This is sort of more of a look at your paper, see what makes sense situation. So I was able to create this little flap right here that will be very nice to put a glue dot on and then attach to this center of the paper that we cut. So I'm grabbing a glue. Yes.
Filomena, it's Ruth Ann. I'm having a heck of a time getting the glue dot off this see-through material.
Yeah. Yep. I
can't get it off. Would be better just using Elmer's glue or something?
You can use glue. You will maybe need some more, maybe some, if you have some paper clips around, the glue doesn't hold very quickly. I'm so sorry about that, Ruthie. So advice that I have is, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. These are useful, but maybe frustrating. So pressing very hard on the glue once it's attached to the paper, see how I'm really rubbing it? And that also warms it. That also warms it up a little bit. And then taking my fingernail and sort of holding the glue down as I pull the plastic off the tube. You are absolutely right. They are frustrating, but also super useful. So,
well, you know what I might do? I might get my glue gun out tomorrow and do it that way.
Okay, awesome.
Because I cannot get these off at all. I think I've thrown away 4 or 5 of them because it keeps sticking and it's ripping the paper.
I'm so sorry, Ruthie.
Hey, that's okay. I just not for Ruthie is all with my big hands, I think.
When I was designing this originally, I had some fake nails on, and that was even harder. So I'm so glad that I now have gone back to my natural nails. I painted them for y'all tonight so that they would look a little bit better. I do agree with you that they are struggling sometimes. They create some struggling.
But I see what's gonna happen, so that's fine. Like I say, I'll keep watching and then I'll just get the glue gun out tomorrow.
Okay, great. So now I've got some weird kind of pokey points, and for this one I'm deciding I don't like how you can see how this is sort of, this triangular bit here is kind of pokey. So I'm just taking my scissors and trimming it to make it a little softer.
Oh.
And then you can also take your piece, if you decide like that you don't like how a petal looks, or if it's just a weird shape, you can take your scissors now and further design it to your liking. So if I wanted to make that petal feel a little bit more elegant, and look, and now my thumb is actually stuck to the glue dot. Oh, joy. So you can, because you can see the outline of mine, maybe that's a design element you want. If you had a marker or a rubber stamper, you could hit the edges of the paper with a little bit of ink, or and you can hopefully see that larger paper is going to give you a much larger rose, and that you could put strips of paper together. So you could cut your initial square like you did, and then you could tape to the end of that spiral more paper. So if you wanted to make this even larger, you could keep going and just adding on larger and larger and larger pieces, so that you could have, you know, a 3-foot paper rose, which would be so fun. I can imagine, you know, decorating a bridal shower buffet, or even making these to put together as a bridal bouquet. I'm hoping that you're able to maybe put these on some gifts as you're wrapping. This little sequiny things that I put in your kit, I put those in because I thought it would be fun to, you could put these on the edge of your petal and make it look like a little dewdrop hanging out on your rose. You could drop one down in the center as a little surprise. And they're just fun crafty things to have around. I just think they're cute. So I do apologize that if the glue dots are not your friend right now. I've had some time to have a discussion with them, so they're going to behave for me tonight. They promised me. Are there any other questions about that? Does anyone have anything they'd like to share, something that worked for them? Again, you can start by drawing if you want. Oh, hey, Kathy, good to see you. You can start by drawing. Hi, Michelle. Hello, everyone. You could start by drawing if you want, but I typically just go for it. Again, if you're teaching this to a little kid, I think drawing it for them is helpful. You can also take a pencil or something, and you can fold, not I don't want to say fold. You can sort of design the paper to turn down a little bit by pressing it against the back of a pencil. It will sort of curve the paper a little. Depending on what kind of paper you're using, you're going to have the ability to mold the paper a little bit. Okay, so those are our little gift topper roses. And now if it's cool with everyone, we can go on to our next part, which has a different kind of fiddliness to it, but again, so fun. I love making these. And so I was saying the one, depending on what you have in your kit, I may have given you some old music paper that I've stamped and cut out for you. Each of your kits is a little different. I just love ephemera. I've often used Christmas cards or birthday cards. I'll stamp out little beautiful parts of the cards and use these to make ornaments. Let's see. No cute thing is safe in my house. It's going to get used up for something. So I'm going to move. So again, we're going to need glue dots, but not as many, maybe. This one I feel like is easier than the rose. I started with the rose to get us to get that under our belt. Okay, so what we need for the next one is we're going to need our circles that we had. Whatever trim came in your kit, that's what we create a loop to hang this all up. I put some strips of paper in your kit, the double-sided strips of paper. I had another one somewhere and it is gone. I cannot see it on my table. Maybe I will cut a strip for it very quickly. So you have this beautiful double-sided paper that has this really beautiful texture in it. And we are just basically going to create an accordion fold, just like you did back in school. So an accordion fold just means we're going in one direction and then the next. Just creating these little jiggity jaggities. And I didn't use a ruler to mark this off. If you wanted to, you certainly can. I think these are about 1/2 inch. So all you're really going to do is fold in one direction so that you see the back of the paper, and then tuck that under and fold so you see the top of the paper. And you're doing your best to try to get it always to be the same width, your fold to be the same width. Again, you could take a ruler and carefully mark out where each of these folds is going to be, but ultimately I don't think it matters. What does matter is that your strip of paper is relatively the same width all the way down your strip. So that's more important than getting these folds just right. But this is just an accordion fold back and forth. And every once in a while, giving it a nice press. Again, this is another great thing to teach little kids, little hand-eye coordination. And don't worry about it being perfect. Just have fun, back and forth. This is another thing where you could keep adding more and more strips of paper, and this could be quite large. You could make this as wide as you like too, and of course that's going to change the size of your ornament. Back and forth, back and forth. It's also one of those projects, so make it, if you have a tendency to hoard pretty paper, this is sort of dangerous for those of us who are like that, because we're like, I can use something with that tiny little piece of paper. So when you're done, you'll have this accordion. You can hear it in your head, the accordion playing. And our first step, so we're gonna need a glue dot or your hot glue gun if you've got that going on, and maybe your clip might be helpful here. But basically, we are going to just create a circle with our accordion here. We're just going to create a circle and make sort of this cool starburst. So we need a glue dot. Dun, 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 dun. We need a glue dot on the beginning or end, depending, of your little snaky here. So again, if you press real hard and it sort of warms the glue up a little, your finger, and then use your fingernail to kind of hold it down, and voila. And then we are going to glue that. Let's see, did I do that wrong? Yeah, we're going to glue that into a circle. But I did that wrong. I put it on the wrong side. Hold on. There we go. Cool. So just be mindful. I had originally put it on the wrong side, so I needed an up instead of a down. So just look at your situation to make sure you've got it where you want it. There we go. Okay. So once we have this, so this is the tricky bit. Let's see, it may be helpful if we have one of our circles nearby, because what happens is that circle, eventually what we're going to do is we are going to glue, using our dots, we're going to glue the thing that we just accordion folded onto one of these circles. It's pretty like heavy paper circles that I gave you. That's going to hold our situation in place. So it will behoove you to have one of your circles there. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a glue dot on that circle. You might need two. Press real hard. That warms up the glue. And then bada bing. All right. So here's the tricky bit. So I've got a glue dot on that circle. I'm just going to put it there. Here's the tricky bit. We need to get this, which is standing up right now because we've glued it into a circle, to come together. Stick with me, folks. It will happen. I promise. It will happen. To come together so that the points come to the center. It will happen. I promise. And it creates this cute little medallion. And like, it's fiddly. I know, but it's super fun. I glued it wrong. I thought I'd glued it wrong before. It turns out I glued it wrong the second time. Let me try that again. New glue dot, Filomena. See, it doesn't always work out, even for people who design these projects. Need a new glue dot. I had a zig where I needed a zag. There. Okay. So do it right this time. Did it? That's going down, so that needs to go there. All right. Better or worse? Okay, so back to again, it's fiddly. I know, but we are going to woman handle it or man handle it, depending on who's in the room, into a medallion that is round like this. So it was standing up like this. We are going to manipulate it so that we can see the inside of the circle that we created. Like that. Fiddly, yes. Doable, yes. It's okay. We're here to try new things. And I'm still manipulating my up and down parts. All right, cool. So now that we have this as a circle, and if you're still struggling, don't worry. See, I've used both hands and I'm holding it on both sides there. Now I'm going to place it on my glue dot. And it's possible I'll need more glue dots, but I'm gonna get that one in place. And I can see I'm gonna need another glue dot under this section here, but even with the one glue dot, see, I've now got it in place. It's holding where it's supposed to be. I'm gonna slip another glue dot underneath there. And if you're having to refold your strip a little bit, that's totally fine, totally normal. Again, after you've done this about 20 times, it gets easier. And now, okay. Again, press real hard on the glue dots. It heats it up a little bit, and then it's a little easier for it to come off of that plastic. And there. All right, so now I've got another connection point on my rosette. So I might need one more. Okay. So now that our wee rosette is on our backing circle. I definitely need another one. Mine's trying to do the can. Let's see. Cool. Got our little rosette on our backing paper, and you can see that backing paper you don't really see ever again, so that might be a good time to use some paper, some heavier paper that you don't need, or if you have thin cardboard like from a cereal box or something, that would be a good weight, because you really don't see that at all after you put your other stuff on this. So we've got that, and then I like to take one of the sort of flowery ephemera pieces that I've put in your kit. I'll put a couple of glue dots, maybe one or two on that. And yours may have a color on one side or be blank on another side. So you can decide which feels better for you. This is such a fun gift for anyone who's a musician. I know we have a couple, at least one musician in our class tonight. This would be fun if you had some old sheet music laying around, or a song that really meant a lot to you, your family. So got a glue dot on there, and that holds it in place. And then that just decorates our project really well. You can even put one of your shimmery dots in the center. But to me, these look like, you know, you won first prize for your pie. That's what this kind of looks like to me. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's Victorian, but to me, in my lover of old things heart, it sort of feels Victorian to me. I'm just adding another glue dot. And you can see you don't need very much paper to get this accomplished. All right. So we've got that all zhuzhed up. Again, you could go around this if you had glue and glitter, or if you had ink pads from rubber stamping, you could hit the edges with some rubber stamping ink. Sky's the limit. If you had some brush markers, you could do that. And then finally, to get this to be an ornament, all that I've done, yes. So to make this into an ornament, I took the trim that I have that's in your kit, and I feel like I gave you enough that you could probably cut that in half. And what I'm gonna do is, you guessed it, a couple of glue dots on there, and glued this all together, making sure that I've got it so that it's hanging in the orientation that I like. So you may have to turn it or so. And I put the shiny side facing out so that from both sides of the ornament, it looks quite pretty. All right. So, and yes, hot glue would be great. Elmer's glue will work if you're working with little ones. The problem with the Elmer's glue is all this stuff needs to sit a little bit before you can go on to each step, which is fine. It teaches patience, right? Yeah, any sort of gluing mechanism could work here. It's not specific. If you had, they have this glue that comes in like if you're into scrapbooking, you probably have all of this stuff in your house somewhere. I always try to design these things so you didn't have to buy a million things. Like I said, you could use old cardboard that's in your house for some of this. You could use that and, just color in the papers. So I will make sure I'm up. we were talking about this earlier in class. The next round of classes, we know the January one is definitely happening. We're trying to do the third Wednesday of every month. We have 10 classes planned for next year. So on the 19th, January 19th at 6, the new classes are going to start at 6. And same thing, it's going to be, you call the library to reserve your kit. We will know for sure if the grant all happened soon, I hope, but we don't know if all 10 classes are going to happen, but we know that the January one is definitely going to go off, and I'll have the kits at the library. And next year we're going to spend the whole year really diving deep into playing with oil pastels, which are like a grown-up crayon basically, but you'll see using some surprise products. We're going to be able to use them almost like they're paint. But it's gonna be a fun series, and you can jump in at any time next year. So if you miss January and you jump in February or March, don't worry. You can still play along with us. So I've just taken our glue dots. I've put this circle on the back, and now I have this little hanger that I can hang this on my tree. Again, I can use it as another way to gift something. I could put the back of a pin back on this, and you could wear it. You know, why not give yourself the blue ribbon? Give yourself first place. How cute would these be with like people's portraits in them, or your pet portraits? Like if you had a picture of your dog or your cat, you could do that. That would be really, really sweet. These roses that we were working on, you could put a hanger. You could take the other piece of trim that you have here. You could do the same thing where you glue that and hang that one up. You could lay this on a mantle. Oh my gosh, I just thought of this. What if with these larger ones, you could take one of those battery operated tea lights and place it down inside? That might look really cute too. Let's see. I think I'm gonna add a little crystal to this one. You're looking a little empty in the middle. Ah, I'm a girl who likes sparkles. Sparkles, sparkles, sparkles. Let's see.